There is a pattern in history that has reset civilization 5 times in the last 2,000 years. Not reformed it, not tweaked it, reset it. I am talking about the complete erasure of wealth through hyperinflation, government decree, or total war. It happened to ancient Rome in 33 AD. It happened to medieval Europe in 1347. It happened to revolutionary France in 1789, Weimar Germany in 1923, and post-war Europe in 1953. 5 times, 5 different civilizations, but the exact same 6-stage sequence led to total debt annihilation. Each time, the leaders promised the debt was manageable. Each time, the mathematicians proved it was impossible. And each time, the debt was erased anyway, destroying the savings of ordinary people while transferring wealth on a scale that makes today's billionaires look like amateurs. Right now, in 2025, we are in stage 3 of this exact same pattern. Global debt has hit 335% of GDP. That is $300 trillion in debt against an economy that only produces $90 trillion. The math is broken. We have crossed the event horizon. And history says that stages 4, 5, and 6 follow with the precision of a metronome. The only question left isn't if the crash is coming. It is whether the reset comes through hyperinflation, destroying the currency, a jubilee, destroying the creditors, or war, destroying the system. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to show you the pattern that predicts exactly how the next 24 months will play out. I will show you why your savings account is the most dangerous place to be. And most importantly, I will show you the 3 specific positions that have survived every single one of these resets since the time of Caesar. This isn't prophecy, it is pattern recognition. And the pattern just clicked into the red zone. Make sure you've subscribed, Finance Daddy. Before we look at the history, you need to understand why this collapse is not optional. It isn't a policy choice. It is a mathematical necessity. Here's the simple reality that politicians won't tell you. Debt is a claim on future production. When you borrow $100,000, you are promising to produce $100,000 worth of value in the future to pay it back. But right now, the global economy has made promises it physically cannot keep. Global debt is $300 trillion. Global GDP, the actual value of everything we produce in a year, is only $90 trillion. Even if every human being on Earth gave 100% of their income to pay off the debt, it would take more than 3 years of total global slave labor to clear the ledger. But it gets worse. The interest on that debt is growing faster than the economy itself. If global growth is 3%, we produce $2.7 trillion in new wealth a year. But if the average interest rate on $300 trillion is just 3%, we owe $9 trillion in interest payments alone. Do the math. The economy makes $2.7 trillion. The debt demands $9 trillion. This is the definition of a Ponzi scheme. We are borrowing new money just to pay the interest on the old money. And like every Ponzi scheme in history, from Charles Ponzi to Bernie Madoff, it works perfectly until the moment it stops working entirely. When the math breaks, the debt must be eliminated. Not restructured, not refinanced. Eliminated. This is what we call a jubilee. It is the complete cancellation of debt, because the alternative is the death of the civilization. This is the part of the story that the elites are terrified you will understand. They want you to think this is just a business cycle. It's not. It's the end of a long-term debt supercycle. I have prepared a deep dive video, a killer video, that exposes exactly how the ultra-wealthy are moving their money to protect themselves from this specific mathematical collapse. I am frankly afraid to upload it because it reveals the loopholes they use. But I will make a deal with you. We are racing to hit 1,000 subscribers by December 31st, 2025. If we hit that number, I will take the risk and release that video for all the insiders. So if you want the playbook, hit that subscribe button right now. Now, Let's look at how this exact scenario played out in ancient Rome and why it looks terrifyingly familiar. To understand where we are, you have to look at the trap that caught every civilization before us. It is called Stage 1, the prosperity illusion. Every single debt crisis begins the exact same way, with a flood of easy credit that feels like a golden age. It is the seduction phase. People borrow, they spend, and the economy grows. Politicians point to the skylines and the stock markets as proof that their policies are working. But it isn't real wealth. It is simply borrowing from the future to throw a party today. Look at ancient Rome between 10 and 30 AD. After Augustus established the empire, credit markets exploded. Wealthy senators borrowed massive sums to fund gladiatorial games and build lavish villas. The economy appeared to be booming. More aqueducts, more trade, more luxury goods flowing into the capital. But it wasn't funded by production. It was funded by debt. The exact same thing happened in medieval Europe in the 1300s. The Italian banking houses, the Bardi and the Peruzzi, lent millions to the kings of England and France to build cathedrals and fight the 100 Years' War. It created a massive economic boom, until the bill came due. This leads inevitably to Stage 2, the 250% threshold. At some point, the borrowing crosses a mathematical line where it stops fueling growth and starts eating it. Economists have identified this threshold at approximately 250% of debt to GDP. Once a civilization owes 2.5 times more than it produces, every new dollar of debt generates less than a dollar of growth. You are running on a treadmill that is speeding up while your legs are slowing down. Revolutionary France hit this wall in 1780. King Louis XVI inherited a nation where the debt was consuming 50% of all government revenue just in interest payments. Court at Versailles was still partying, the wigs were still powdered, and the champagne was still flowing. But the math was already dead. The economy was hollowed out. Here is the terrifying part for us today. The United States crossed the Stage 2 threshold way back in 2010. The global financial crisis pushed us past the point of no return. Instead of fixing it, we doubled down. We printed our way through 2008. We printed our way through 2020. And now, global debt has surged past 335% of GDP. We have been living in the zombie zone for a decade, keeping the illusion alive with 0% interest rates. But that era is over. We have now graduated to the deadliest phase of the cycle, the phase where the math stops being a theory and starts becoming a predator. We are currently living through Stage 3, the interest trap. This is the phase where the cost of the past destroys the possibility of a future. It happens when the interest payments on existing debt consume all new economic growth. The system becomes a vampire, feeding on itself just to stay alive. In 33 AD, the Roman credit system froze because senators couldn't pay the interest on their loans. In 1788, the French monarchy was spending 60% of its tax revenue on debt service, more than it spent on the army, the navy, and the court combined. The government wasn't governing anymore. It was just a debt collection agency for the banks. Look at the United States in 2025. We are spending nearly $1 trillion a year just on interest payments for the national debt. That is more than we spend on the military. It is more than we spend on Medicaid. It is more than we spend on veterans. We are borrowing new money from China and Japan just to pay the interest to China and Japan. This is the definition of insolvency. When you have to use your credit card to pay your mortgage, you are already bankrupt. You just haven't admitted it yet. The US government effectively has to run a budget surplus for the next 40 years just to break even, something that is politically impossible. This brings us to the ultimate question. The math says the debt cannot be paid. So how does it end? There are only two ways out of a debt trap like this. The government can either print infinite money to inflate the debt away, destroying the currency, or they can refuse to pay, destroying the credit rating. I want to know what you think. How will they reset the system? Will they choose inflation or default? Go to the comments and type just one word. I want to see if you think they will sacrifice the dollar or sacrifice the bond market. Because history shows that stage 4 is when they finally make that choice. And it usually involves a third option that is even worse. Once the interest trap snaps shut, we enter stage 4, the recognition. This is the moment when the math becomes public. It is no longer a secret kept by central bankers. Everyone, from the billionaire bond trader to the guy stocking shelves, realizes the money isn't coming back. In 1789 France, this recognition turned into the revolution. The Third Estate realized the king was bankrupt and refused to pay more taxes to bail him out. The social contract snapped. This leads inevitably to stage 6, the reset. When the debt is mathematically unpayable, reality enforces a correction. And in 2,000 years of history, there have only been 3 ways this happens. There is no fourth option. Method 1 is hyperinflation. This is the politician's favorite choice because it is subtle. They print unlimited money to pay the bills. The debt is technically repaid, but it is repaid in currency that is worthless. This is what Rome did by debasing the silver denarius. It is what Weimar Germany did in 1923 when they printed trillion-mark notes to pay war reparations. The government survives, but the savers are wiped out. Method 2 is a jubilee. This is the hard reset. The government simply declares the debt void. In 1953, the Allied powers met in London and agreed to cancel half of West Germany's debt to stop a collapse. It saved the German economy, but the creditors took a massive loss. Method 3 is war. This is the darkest option. When internal pressure becomes too high, nations often turn outward. War destroys the physical capital and the ledgers themselves. The Black Death in 1347 functioned like a biological war. It killed so many creditors and debtors that the financial system simply rebooted from scratch. Right now, in 2025, the pressure is building for one of these exits. We see calls for student loan jubilees. We see inflation eroding the dollar. We see geopolitical tensions rising. The system is shaking because it is looking for a release valve. And while you cannot stop the reset, you can step out of the blast zone. There are 3 specific financial positions that have survived every single one of these scenarios. Here is the secret that the wealthy understand. A reset does not destroy wealth, it transfers it. It moves value from the creditor, the person holding the paper, to the debtor, the person holding the asset. If you want to be on the receiving end of the greatest wealth transfer in history, you need to hold 3 specific positions. Position 1 is hard money. This means gold and silver. In Weimar Germany, paper savings were wiped out in weeks. But the price of an ounce of gold went from 100 marks to 87 trillion marks. It didn't gain value. It simply kept its value while the currency died. Gold is the only financial asset that is not someone else's liability. It survives war. It survives inflation. And it survives default because it has no counterparty. Position 2 is productive land. Whether it is farmland in Rome or an apartment building in 1950s Europe, land survives. When the currency resets, the rent simply reprices in the new money. If the dollar dies and we switch to a crypto dollar, your land is still there. It produces food or shelter, human needs, that do not depend on the Federal Reserve. Position 3 is strategic fixed-rate debt. This is the most controversial but powerful move. In a high inflation reset, debtors win. If you borrow $300,000 to buy a house at a fixed rate, and then hyperinflation hits, the value of that debt evaporates. You pay back the loan with worthless paper money, but you keep the physical house. You are effectively shorting the dying currency. I bet you have a friend who thinks all debt is evil and that sitting in cash is safe. Do them a favor. Share this specific timestamp with them right now. They need to understand that in a currency collapse, cash is the riskiest asset you can own, and a fixed-rate mortgage on a real asset is essentially a lottery ticket that the bank pays for. These three positions, hard money, productive land, and strategic debt, form the iron triangle of survival. They allow you to step outside the blast radius of the paper system. But you have to move before the reset happens. And that brings us to the final, critical question. How much time do we actually have left? So, how much time is left on the clock? If we layer the timeline of 2025 over the previous 5 resets, the result is chilling. History shows that once a civilization enters stage 3, where interest payments consume all growth, stage 6, the reset, follows within 3 to 7 years. We officially entered stage 3 in 2020, when the global economy shut down and we printed $17 trillion to keep it alive. That started the clock. Based on the Roman, French, and Weimar examples, the mathematical limit hits between 2023 and 2027. We are already inside the red zone. The inflation spikes of 2022 were the tremors. The bank failures of 2023 were the cracks in the foundation. The next phase is the landslide. The system is currently being held together by duct tape and promises. But you cannot cheat math forever. The debt will be reset. The only variable is whether you are prepared for it. The wealthy are already moving. They are buying farmland in Idaho, gold in Singapore, and bunkers in New Zealand. They know the music is stopping. This brings us back to our mission. We are tracking these moves in real time. We are building the only community that refuses to be collateral damage in the next reset. And we have a goal. We are racing to hit 1,000 subscribers by December 31st, 2025. If we hit that number, I'm going to release the killer video. This is the script I have already written that reveals the specific legal structures, the trusts and LLCs, that the elites use to make their assets invisible to the government during a crisis. I am genuinely afraid to upload it because it gives away the game. But if we hit 1,000 insiders, I will take the risk. Before I let you go, I want to talk to you directly. Just you and me. I know this is a heavy video. Hearing that the financial system is mathematically doomed can make you feel helpless. It can make you feel like everything you've worked for is in danger. And you're right to feel that way. The system is dangerous for people who play by the old rules. But I want you to flip the script. This isn't just a crisis. It is the greatest opportunity of your lifetime. The people who made generational fortunes, the Rothschilds, the Kennedys, the Rockefellers, didn't make them during the boom times. They made them during the resets. They understood that when the board is flipped over, the pieces are up for grabs. You have something they didn't have: information. You have the pattern. You know what stage 4 looks like before it hits the news. That gives you an edge. You don't have to be a victim of the reset. You can be a beneficiary of it. So don't let the fear paralyze you. Use it. Use it to get your house in order. Use it to get out of bad debt. Use it to buy real assets. We are going to navigate this transition together, week by week. So if you are ready to stop being a pawn and start being a player, hit that subscribe button. Join the insiders. The metronome is ticking. Make sure you move before it stops. Class dismissed.